10-minute murder.
In April of 2008, the Stockdale family appeared on an episode of ABC's Wife Swap. And in case you aren't aware of what this show is about, it's not about a family of swingers. It's a reality show with a simple premise. Two families with opposite lifestyles and values decide to swap their wives for a 2-week period and kind of be the mom of the family. And of course, the drama and the conflict is recorded for our entertainment. The Stockdale family was from an isolated farm in Ohio, and they couldn't have been more different than the family that they were paired with, the Tonkovics. While the Tonkovics were a liberal family who had a relaxed approach to parenting, the Stockdale parents were conservative, Christian, and incredibly strict. Catherine and Timothy Stockdale had 4 sons, Calvin, Charles, Jacob, and James, who they chose to keep isolated from the rest of the world so that the boys could be, quote, protected from bad influences. They weren't even allowed small privileges, like listening to songs on the radio, unless their parents felt that the boys had earned it. To show that they had earned the right to these privileges, the Stockdale boys had to work for hours doing household chores in exchange for tokens that gave them the permission to choose how they spent their time. But even this small amount of freedom was limited. The Stockdale boys were forbidden from making friends, and as they became teenagers, they were not allowed to date. On Wife Swap, Kathy Stockdale said, quote, "I think that dating has physical dangers, like pregnancy. It's not worth it. It's important that we have control over their character and their education." The most, air quotes, fun that the Stockdale boys were regularly allowed was playing instruments in what their parents called our wholesome family bluegrass band. Calvin played the mandolin, Charles played the guitar, Jacob played the fiddle, and James played the bass. The Stockdale family band carried out regular public performances, and Kathy would record them singing different songs and then post the videos on social media. During the filming of Wife Swap, the 4 Stockdale boys spent 2 weeks being cared for by the Tonkovic family's mother, Lori. Lori felt bad for the boys, thinking that they'd been forbidden from having what she believed were normal teenage experiences, and she tried to make up for it by allowing them to play video games, listen to music, and watch TV. However, the boys were hesitant to accept, and even became upset at the freedom that they were being offered. At one point, Jacob Stockdale told Lori that he believed if he accepted her offers, he'd be condemned to hell. From then on, Lori remembered the weeks that she spent with the Stockdales. Almost a decade later, on the 15th of June, 2017, Jacob Stockdale attacked his mother and younger brother, James. After shooting 2 of his family members to death, he put the gun to his own head and pulled the trigger. The police were quick to respond to the 911 call they'd received from Beach City, Ohio, even though it was a hang-up call that lasted only a few seconds. When the officers arrived near the residence that the call had come from, they heard a gunshot and rushed inside to find 25-year-old Jacob Stockdale bleeding from a self-inflicted bullet wound to the head. Searching the house, they found Jacob's victims, his 21-year-old brother James and 54-year-old mother Catherine. It was too late to save James or Catherine, but despite shooting himself in the head, Jacob was still clinging to life. He was rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery, narrowly avoiding death. Shortly after the names of the victims became public, Timothy Stockdale, Jacob's father, released a public statement about his late wife. It read, quote, "Kathy has been my beloved wife of 32 years and a wonderful mother to our 4 sons. She loved nothing more than being a mother and a grandmother. She had a strong love of learning and was passionate about her Christian faith, natural health, and organic farming." Jacob's oldest brother, Calvin, also gave a statement where he spoke about his brother James and mentioned Jacob's injuries. Quote, "James, our youngest brother, has always been a catalyst of family fun." Calvin said, "He leaves behind many friends and a family that loved him dearly. My brother Jacob is still in critical condition, and we are praying for his physical recovery as our family makes funeral plans and begins the healing process. Once Jacob had recovered from his suicide attempt, he was charged with murdering his mother and brother. The public quickly realized this was the same Stockdale family that had appeared on TV 10 years ago, causing the case to be nicknamed the Wife Swap Murders. The Stark County Sheriff commented on the lack of motive for the murders. It's hard to, kind of surmise what the motive may have been, he said. There is some speculation. We don't really want to get into that part of it, but we will continue to investigate this case and try to determine if there is a motive. We just don't know at this time. Despite the sheriff's statement, many people believed that the motive for the killings had been obvious. It was the complete control that the Stockdales exerted over their children. After watching one 10-year-old episode of Wife Swap, viewers believed that they had found the answer that the sheriff had never been able to figure out. Jacob Stockdale had believed that killing his family was the only way he'd ever be free. Lori Tonkovic gave an interview to TMZ after the murders and talked about what she remembered about Jacob's dynamic with his family during her time on Wife Swap. When I switched the rules and I was going to let them have fun, let them have a television and video games and experience life a little bit, Jacob ran outside crying. And when I went out after him, I asked him what was wrong. And he said that his mom and dad would tell him that he would burn in hell. God gives you free will, but free will they did not have. They weren't allowed to make choices. I think it just caught up to him. Despite these theories about Jacob's motives, no confirmed motive for the killings has ever been made public. After his arrest and indictment in 2018, Jacob alleged that he was not guilty of the murders by reason of insanity. This resulted in him spending 2 years receiving treatment in different psychiatric facilities, which he repeatedly tried to escape from. At first, he tried to escape by hiding amongst stacks of books, but he was quickly caught. Then he attempted to casually walk out the front door, pretending to be just another visitor. But once again, he was caught immediately. Finally, after he was found to be sane at the time the killings were carried out, a date was set for his trial to begin. After initially pleading not guilty due to insanity, Jacob changed his mind about the plea. Only 1 week before his May 2021 trial began, he pled guilty to the double murder. Despite the high-profile nature of the case, the surviving members of the Stockdale family were reluctant to comment on the murders after their initial public statements. Allegedly, some of Jacob's family members spoke to the judge before the trial and requested that he was lenient during sentencing. Jacob received 2 15-year prison sentences, one for each murder, to be served consecutively. Jacob Stockdale is currently incarcerated in Chillicothe Correctional Facility, a medium-security prison in Ohio. He won't be eligible for parole until late 2048. Although Jacob's surviving family hasn't said whether they'll still talk to him or visit him in Chillicothe, his father Timothy said, "My sons and I continue to love Jacob." The Wife Swap Murders is a unique story where the public was able to observe a controversial family dynamic years before it violently imploded. But it's never been confirmed whether Timothy and Catherine's unforgiving parenting style was the reason that Jacob committed the murders. It could have been revenge for years of control or a desperate attempt to escape from the isolated household. It could have been an argument that escalated towards violence, or simply a violent outburst with no deeper meaning. Nobody but Jacob Stockdale himself will ever know what happened the seconds or minutes leading up to the shooting. And when he put that gun to his own head, he might have been hoping that he would never have to answer that question. But a small snippet of his family life will always be preserved in Wife Swap, Season 4, Episode 15. That is 10-Minute Murder, brief and bingeable true crime. I'm Joe, I'm the host, and I really appreciate you listening. If you're new to 10-Minute Murder, let me tell you, thank you for taking the time out of your day. I hope you enjoyed it, and I always feel weird about saying I hope you enjoyed the episode. Because yeah, we're talking about murders here. Obviously, we don't enjoy the murders. but we can enjoy the interesting parts of the story. It's interesting to hear about what made people do what they did, the backstory and the details of how they got caught. I don't think there's anything wrong with enjoying an episode because the topic is interesting, with all due respect to the victims. The other day, a listener named Madison commented that she feels conflicted when liking a 10-minute murder post. And I get that. I look at it like you're liking the 10-minute murder show when you like it. But I understand. And Madison also said that Joe is cool. And obviously she's correct about that, so you can't really argue, right? Anyway, what was I saying? New listeners, please subscribe now so that you can more easily catch up on all of the back episodes. And connect with me on social media to see the pictures that we talk about here on the podcast. It's never gross and graphic stuff, though. And if you like this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, Audible, any place that is possible. Words cannot describe how much I enjoy getting your positive feedback like that. All right, that's going to do it. That is your episode for today. Thank you so much for listening to 10 Minute Murder.